According to Britannica, it claims, without bees, the availability and diversity of fresh produce would decline substantially, and human nutrition would most likely suffer. Without bees, we wouldn't have the abundance of apples, pumpkins, strawberries, blueberries, or almonds that we enjoy. This is important to me because I would like to continue to have the resources that are provided by bees. Every time we kill bees, it lowers the pollination spread to our food, therefore causing a butterfly effect into a depression. Bees are killed from several different ways, like parasites, pathogens, pesticides, poor nutrients, and habitat loss. There are several different ways to kill bees, which include pesticides on the plants they pollinate and destroying their habitats. Pesticide damages the bee's brain and body functions used to pollinate plants, unable to reproduce, and confuses bees into death. Another reason for the bees dying is that habitats are being replaced by farms and cities. To create a large build like this, you need to make room, which includes cutting down trees and destroying flower fields. Project Firefly claims much pollinator habitat has been lost to agriculture, resource extraction, and urban and suburban development. Although these land uses can provide floral resources and benefit some pollinators, many bees and butterflies are habitat specific, and the loss of habitat provides sites for overwintering, foraging for pollen and nectar, or nesting can be detrimental to these species. On the bright side, there are several ways to help prevent the extinction of our bees. Several beekeepers build artificial beehives and bee boxes to give bees a safe and comfortable home. If you reside in a city, you might think it's hard to believe to start a beehive. Yet it isn't. Beehives can be placed in suburban backyards and or on city roofs. You can make money depending on how many hives you have, but a lot depends on the time of year and nectar flow. Beekeeping requires some initial investment. After that, you can anticipate a beekeeping profit of about $600 per hive. Bees are vital to the life of humans. They pollinate 1 in every 3 bites of the food we eat and are essential to the health and prosperity of many ecosystems. However, bees are in danger. 1 in 4 of North American native bee species, which numbers 4,000, are thought to be in danger of extinction. According to the Center of Biological Diversity, another way is by planting trees and flowers in your backyard, or in a pot on your porch. For bees, hummingbirds, butterflies, the blooms are native perennials, and annuals are wonderful sources of nectar, but truly increase the effect of your pollinator-friendly garden, growing a blooming tree. It's possible to collect as much honey and pollen from a single tree as there is from a whole field of wildflowers. Carpenter bees and other natural nesting bee species can find refuge in trees. When planted in the temperate zone and soil conditions where they develop, native trees require little maintenance since their bloom time are timed with the life cycles of the local pollinators. The loss of bees would drastically affect human food systems in terms of agriculture, yet it is unlikely that starvation will result. Cereal grains, which are wind pollinated, consequently unaffected by bee pollination, nonetheless provide the majority of human calories. But since many fruit and vegetables are insect pollinated, bees are necessary for their production on a large scale or at a low cost. As an example, honeybees are responsible to up to 90% of the pollination of blueberries and cherries. Although hand pollination is an option for the majority of fruits and vegetable crops, it is quite labor and money intensive. Japanese scientists have created tiny robotic pollinator drones, but their cost is still too high for the entire orchards or fields of time-sensitive flowers. It is also proven a fact that humans can only live without honeybees for at most 4 years. Here is a written interview from a local beekeeper named Jennifer Ives. What was the reason you start keeping bees? We started to keep bees because we wanted to save the bees and boost the bee population. In your opinion, what is the main cause for most bees' death? The most bee deaths are pesticides by people who are afraid of bees, water depth workers who kill bees, and loss of habitat due to housing. What are the biggest threats to bees? Biggest threats to bees are varroa mites, hive beetles, and wax moths. What is a typical day like for a beekeeper? A beekeeper who is a hobbyist with 25 hives or less is pretty normal except when you inspect your hives. When you inspect your hives, depending on how many you have, it can take anywhere from 2 hours to all day. A hive inspection involves collecting G-frames for brood, capped money, pollen, and any possible problems, and looking for queen cells. What are some pros and cons of being a beekeeper? Pros of being a beekeeper is you get honey and lots of different products from the hive. Cons: it takes a lot of work. You have to know what you're doing during the different seasons for the bees, and you have to know the laws that govern beekeeping. How long have you been in this career? We are in our 3rd year of beekeeping. What type of bees do you keep? We have an Italian bee that we keep. What are some skills needed for this job? Beekeepers' skills include good observation skills and not being afraid to be around bees. What challenges do beekeepers face? Nature, avoiding swarms, and knowing how to control the population of the hive. Is there any advice you would like to give to someone to help the bee's life? The best advice to help a bee is keep your hives healthy by treating varroa mites and hive beetles. There are natural ways to do this. And here is the written interview from Heidi Tornox-Hanshaw. What was the reason for you to start keeping bees? I started beekeeping because my husband and I live on a large plot of land, and my dreams is to provide food for the family through our fruit trees and our vegetable gardening. Knowing that there has been a beekeeping decline wild population, I was interested in beekeeping as a way to help both our native flowers and trees and the gardens on our property. My husband was interested in allowing me to pursue this hobby because where we live, we are able to use our bees as an agricultural exemption for our property, thus reducing our tax liability. In addition, I love fresh honey. In your opinion, what is the main cause for most bees' death? Not studying this and without any research to back it up, I believe that the wild bee population has declined due to our society being a whole mismanaging our natural resources and relying too heavily on chemical pesticides. That, in addition to commercial farming practices that leave the ground wiped out of nutrients, lead to a decrease in food for the bees. Weakened hives lead to an increase of disease susceptibility of the bees and hive overall, and allows pests and parasites to take over the weakened hives, small hive beetles, varroa mites, and all attack and destroy weak hives. What are the biggest threats to bees? The biggest threats to bees is intervention from humans. They have survived so long in the wild without us, but our practices are not always conducive to increasing wild bee population. What is a typical day like for a beekeeper? My typical day as a beekeeper is very hands-off. We maintain 6 hives on our property, and most days we just allow them to do their thing. When we have new hives, we will suit up in the morning with our gear, smoker and extra frames and boxes, and go down to the bee yard. We will inspect the hives and look for evidence that there is a queen laying eggs. We can see the tiny seed eggs, or can even see the caped brood and know how many days ago the queen has laid. We generally always want to check evidence that the queen has laid recently, along with check to see how much room the bees have in the box. When it is a new hive, we try to help them along by providing sugar water to help them quickly draw out combs on new frames. This ensures that the bees have enough space to lay eggs, the queen, and space to store pollen and nectar. with new hives we do this about every 10 days, mostly because we can make adjustments as we go along. With established hives, you should still go out and check that you can plant and harvest if needed. Inspecting all 6 hives and harvesting can take us several hours. What are some pros and cons of being a beekeeper? The pros of being a beekeeper is definitely the product. Honey is great. The wax when you harvest honey can also be great if you like to make soaps or candles. The benefits to my fruit and veggies are also great. Cons, definitely the stings. Although if you go slow, you might not even get stung. We have very calm bees. They are an Italian variety, and I have gone several years without being stung. We had a feisty hive earlier this year and was stung about 4 times, so that stunk, but I healed up quickly. We have the bee yard far enough from the house that they do not pose a problem with our everyday life. But if someone is doing this closer to their homes, they have an aggressive hive, they might experience more problems. Another con, the suits can be hot, especially in the summer heat. This is probably my biggest deterrent in inspecting our hives more frequently in Texas. But in the beekeeping working, we must be doing something okay. Lol. How have you been in this career? Or how long have you been in this career? This is just a hobby for our family, but we have been beekeeping for about 6 years now. When we need to order bees, we tend to get the Italian bees. They are bred to be gentle and, more importantly, disease-free without withstanding the Varroa mites. Skills needed for the job include not being allergic to bees, not really a skill, but a trait, and being calm. Sometimes people, more often than not men in particular, are not able to calm themselves down. This is an important skill to have because the bees will feed off your energy. If you are anxious, they will be anxious. If you are not calm, you might also drop a frame that has thousands of bees on them, and then you'll likely have a mess and you'll injure or kill your bees, and most likely get stung. You also either need a partner or need the ability to comfortably lift up to 40 pounds. Sometimes in beekeeping you need to move an entire box of frames off of the hive, and that can be really heavy. You need to be able to move it without dropping the box. If you drop the box, you could injure yourself or the bees and ruin expensive equipment. What are some skills needed for this job? For anyone wanting to try beekeeping out, check with your county to see if there's any beekeeping organizations in your area. In my area, we have both the Trinity Beekeeping Association and the Metro Beekeepers Association. Take basic classics and then find a mentor that is willing to come out and help you get going, or one that will allow you to come to their bees and learn some hand-on skills. Then keep going to meetings. They always have a great presentation and learning opportunities, and they can help people get set up. Metro Beekeepers every year have a scholarship set up to kids to start learning beekeeping. Such a great opportunity. What challenges do beekeepers face? Beekeepers face challenges every year. The cost to get started is pricey, and the first few years are not profitable. It takes patience for sure. The first year you will not be harvesting honey because you need the bees to get stronger, unless you purchase a full size versus a nucleus colony. The second year you can either split your hive or plan to harvest. So you can either grow your bee yard or try to harvest honey. You also have to face the challenge of Varroa mites and treat your hives to prevent them, along with small hive beetles and etc. You might even lose a hive over winter, or the bees might decide they have outgrown their space and they all leave. That is a challenge. The other smaller challenges are that some people are scared of bees, and some beekeepers have experienced loss of equipment and bees by vandalism. Depending on where a person lives, they might even experience other animal destroying hives. So they will need to know how to protect the hives from the elements, bears, cows, and etc. Is there any advice you would like to give to someone to help the bee's life? Advice to others: calm down. If you find a bee in your space, they likely are there just to check you out or get some water or nectar. They genuinely do not want to hurt you, as stinging you will result in their death. So stop moving. Breathe slowly and just calm down until the bees go away. If you get pinged, there are multiple loudly buzzing you. That is when you might want to worry and go inside and figure out if you have a wild hive nearby. A bee will defend their hive, so just be aware of your surroundings. And wasps are jerks you really need to worry about. Every time we kill bees, it lowers the pollination spread to our food, therefore causing a butterfly effect into depression. Bees are killed from several different ways, like parasites, pathogens, pesticides, poor nutrients, and habitat loss. For more information, go to the Planet Bee Foundation and learn how you can help bees live. Without these little insects, our world would be devastated and fall apart. Listen to the bees and let them guide you, says Brother Adams. Even though bees are scary sometimes, they are still important to us. Thank you.